Oh, hi again. Molo Sanbonani. Hello, how's it? Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Big Daddy Liberty Show. Remember. I'm sure some of you are wondering, the Big Daddy Liberty Show on a Tuesday? What's going on? Guys, we are basically having a show every evening, just for January. We're having this show every evening as I'm trying to put out content for you because I know you've missed me over those long December and early January holidays. So we're just getting to reacquaint each other. With that being said, welcome to it. My name is Maqhawe Ngubane, aka Big Daddy Liberty. Welcome to it. Tonight's show, we are going to unpack the issue, one which, if you're a fan of the show, you know we've touched on it before. We touched on it last year with Zulu historian, or historian of Zulu history, I should actually probably say that, is Dalisu Buthelezi, who's joining us tonight again. Our other guest is Maqhawe Ngubane, who is an Zulu language practitioner, and also I'll call him a cultural analyst, someone who I follow online. He's having a bit of trouble patching in to the show tonight, so we might get him a bit later. But nonetheless, as I said, welcome to it. Jam-packed show. We look at all things KZN, the Zulu throne, KZN independence. Is it a pipe dream, or are people chomping at the bit for it? And of course, we'll look at the politics in KwaZulu-Natal. You know, there is a very clear and gustful wind of political change as Zulus and South Africans in KZN basically looking to change the political guard in 2024. So we'll unpack that and look at some of the push and pull reasons behind it. Now, that's a big mouthful from me. Let me begin by doing a bit of housekeeping. Welcome to it. This is the Big Daddy Liberty Show. Do me a solid favor, please. Hit that like button, whether you're watching the simulcast on Facebook, YouTube, or on Twitter. Hit that like button, please. It helps grow the audience. And of course, do me a solid favor. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. That's right. Hit that subscribe button and join the over 800 people who have become subscribers just in the last few days on the channel. Help me get to my goal of 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. With that being said, find us on our website at bigdaddyliberty.com. All right, guys. With that jibber jabber out the way, let me bring on my first guest for this evening. He is, as I said, an isiZulu historian, someone who really is my go-to when I want to dig deep on the knowledge, the history, the heritage is the word I'm looking for, of us as a proud Zulu nation, and indeed, Isilo, or the throne in this particular part of the world. Dalisu Buthelezi, there he is on screen. Baba Shenge, good evening.
Maqhawe, greetings to you and your audience all over the world. Happy to be back. It's been a long break. Thanks for giving me so much pressure. Hope I can but yeah, it's really good to be back. Hope Maqhawe, who's also my friend, is going to join us. It should be a conversation today.
Absolutely. And I really think it's a conversation that's critically necessary to have, Dalisu, because if you look at what's being said, there's a lot of talking at the moment, there's a lot of moving parts, as we often say. And let's begin with the throne. Let's begin with Inkosi, or King rather, or Mrs. Zulu Tini, who the last time we spoke, this was the situation, as I have it on screen, you know. Very tense contestation between King Mrs. Zulu and, of course, his brother, Prince Smagade. Maybe for those who don't know what was going on, can you just quickly rehash for us what was that contestation and where is it now?
Yeah, so just looking back, the contestation of the throne was expected to happen. Actually, it's believed that if there's no contestation, there's something wrong with the throne. So it was expected to happen. And interestingly, for our kingdom, there's always thoughts of a third hand, which is a political hand behind whoever is contesting. So we see the two prominent or potential heirs to the throne contesting over the throne. One backed by the fact that the Queen Mother is born from a royal house. She is the great queen. She was, her lobola was paid by the nation. A lot of support, blood, and everything just behind him. The other one, being the firstborn of the king, the mother not married to the king but was lobolet. Depending on who you're listening to, there is a mentioning of there was a ceremony to actually put her in the great queen's womb in a traditional ceremony. That's where the big contestation is coming from, because they were saying he is older, though he was born outside the wedlock or the mother never got married. He is older. He was traditionally brought into the great queen's house, which meant he then qualifies to get the throne. So that's where the pushing is coming from for those who supported him. And the other theory or understanding of the culture is that the only time that he qualifies for the throne is when the womb into which he was inserted doesn't actually haven't produced male kids. That's when he stands a chance to qualify for the throne. And in this case, the great Queen Manfombi had got a lot of old, grown enough men in her royal house. So that's where the consultation has been. It's still going on, as we know, but we do feel that with all the ceremonies, great ceremonies, traditional, governmental, all concluded, the other opposing party won't be having much power to continue.
Absolutely. And I think that recap was important, because for a lot of people, they didn't understand actually the underlying reasoning for why there's a contestation. And also, they didn't understand why actually most Zulu individuals, most people within the kingdom, and most Amakhosi or kings actually recognized King Mrs. Zulu KwaZulu-Natal. It's for those very reasons that you cited, that his effective he's the firstborn of the great queen, and beyond that, the great queen's lobola was paid for by the nation. But that's not the topic for this evening. The topic for this evening is threefold. Now that the king is on the throne and there is relative calm restored in KwaZulu, and certainty, I think is the word I'm looking for, not calm as if there was going to be a war, I don't know. But certainty is the word. Under the leadership, it must be said, of Umntwana kaMaphindangene, Prince Maqhawe Ngubane, who I think we must take a moment to commend through this entire process. Zulu leadership, Dalisu, almost reaffirmed in this little turbulent moment as being in firm and good hands.
Yeah, definitely. As we will hear, Prince, my coincidental grandfather, the surname, he usually quotes the fact that it does seem like it's in the bloodline of the Buthelezi clan to protect and guard the Zulu throne. So this dates back when Ungangelele, our great-great-grandfather, moved and left his Buthelezi family to go and serve under Senzangakhona, and from that he got isikhundla soba mnomzane, a great position, or a chief. He was also looking after some of the palaces. He was a good cook. He was very medicinal. He practiced medicine. So when he got there, he was very valuable. And that recognition actually led to when Shaka took over, he gave Ngangelele quite a vast bit of land from Ulundi all the way towards a place called Tueza, towards Vryheid. That's a huge land. There's a lot of Buthelezis when you travel that. So that legacy has came down all the way. You find Umatole as well, being very close to King Solomon. You find Umnyamana being the prime minister for King Cetshwayo. You find even Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi also, being the prime minister for the three different kings in the kingdom. So it is we do feel it is a family calling, but we understand again that the prime minister position is not inherited. You don't just become a prime minister because your father was, but it's because of your role that you play that you then get selected. So he's done great in defending the throne. He did this with even with the father, the late King Maqhawe Ngubane. There was contestation there. He stood up. He stood firm. That's why we find it in the praise names that he stood firm. He defended the king at the time. So he did the same now. I don't know if the praise singers have actually added some of the praises to Mangosuthu regarding the role that he has played right now, but he's done very great. And we proud to be Zulus because of the role that he played. Otherwise, it would have been chaotic, very much chaotic, and even maybe gotten bloody if it wasn't for him.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm sure people are wondering, why am I taking such a long time on this particular issue? Because people often forget that part of the Zulu culture is very much driven, it's woven around the issue of discipline, structure, actual structure, and of course, a federalism in leadership, where there is, yes, one central king, but various amakhosi underneath that who, in their own respect, are leaders, pardon me, of various clans. I'm trying to translate into English. It's very difficult. Dear viewers, let me just quickly say this. For both Dalisu and I, it would be quite difficult to translate certain Zulu concepts into English, but we'll make an effort. But that idea, Dalisu, of a regimented structure and a federalized structure is critically important when we then look at the issue I want us to unpack of, with this Zulu king now on the throne, people are asking the question, what now? How do we rebuild the Zulu nation? How do we rebuild certain structures? What is the role of the Zulu king? And I'm going to bring in some criticism here, Dalisu, and I want to chew on it. Maqhawe would have been even better at it because he talks a lot about it. But there's that criticism I often even see in my own comment section of people saying, why even have a Zulu king? Why is he a Zulu king on my tax money? You'll often hear people say he's paid 100 million rand a year, blah, blah, blah. I want us to unpack some of these issues. But first question, why is it important that there is an actual Zulu king and that overall, independent from government structure, federal Zulu structure of amakhosi? Why is that important, Dalisu?
So we're gonna remember that politics. I like how Zulus call it. I don't know if you've thought about this. We call it Azwe. So it's the conflict over land. That's how we political topic in our language. And we must be frank that politics, if it is about the fight for the land, it doesn't start with the political parties. It doesn't start with the ANC. It doesn't start with IFP, with whoever. It starts with the Bambatas down in Greytown, fighting against the politics, fighting against the colonial systems. It starts with the Great Zulu Army going to Sandwana to defend the very same land, to defend the very same structures. And when the land is brutally taken away from the Zulus and it's brought back by the political system, it needs to be understood that the first person stole from the second person, and then the third person came into power. But the third person had to recognize that actually the land that we're fighting for, it wasn't only ours to start with. It wasn't on the Western political battles that we started the fight. So it's important to recognize the people that paved the way that led us to political struggles. So we do need a king because the land was taken from the kings. The land had the owners, and we can't just forget and move on. That's why they say the healing starts by recognizing the damages of the past. And in this case, the past was that all that land actually in Zululand was either the rulership or the ownership of the mighty descendants of the great King Shaka. So that is why we have that. And as civilization and thing has moved on, there needed to be a way to balance that past with the needs of the future, with the civilization, education, all those things coming in, and just the country now becoming a role player in the bigger global economy or international community. So we couldn't continue, with an olden structure, but we needed to bring the two and then interact with the entire world with those two. So it would have been like a genocide if the politicians just decided that we're done with the former structures. We're done. We don't care who owned which part of the land. Let's move on. And we remember the pain and the brutality of the governments that our later political system delivered us from. So you're talking the colonial system. You're talking the apartheid government. It would have been really wrong to overlook what they did and to whom they did it, and just carry on. So if you're asking the question, why the kings, you basically say we must overlook all the pain that the colonial and the apartheid systems brought onto us. But when you say, okay, let's talk about them, you then remembering that no, before these people came, there was actually structures that were in place, respected, and actually had a proper power. So that's why we can't look away from the word king in our kingdom.
And I must add to this, because people think the Zulu struggle was just against the colonial powers, just against apartheid. Let's be frank, Maqhawe, my apologies, Dalisu. I was chatting to Maqhawe just now. He's struggling to come online. That's why I have Maqhawe's name on my mind. Let's be frank, Dalisu. The fight of Tina as Zulus also extends to this current government, this ANC government, which has threatened that very same land that we're talking about through various means. But we'll get to that in a moment. I just want to chart this issue that existing Zulu structures of leadership are strong, they exist, and of course they are very well respected and have a leadership role across the country. And people are perhaps asking the question now, and this is what I want you to answer. Where to for this new king? What is this, from your gauging, Dalisu, what is the vision of this new king? Has he defined himself? Has he maybe come out and we get a sense of where we're heading as a Zulu nation? What's been your read on that one?
Yeah, let me just in a minute touch on the previous question. I see there was a part that I left because fortunately I live in rural areas. I was born in Nongoma, grew up there. We had fields. I was saying my younger brother doesn't know this. We grew up, there was no fridge. You would count the number of houses with fridge in the whole village. And you will all take our jelly custard there in Christmas so that it can freeze. So I grew up in that state. So we know the benefits of living under the Ingonyama trusted land, so to say, right? I was trying to apply for a business land back at home. The only money that was asked of me, of the huge land that I was looking for, was only 1,200. You won't see that anywhere in the country. I hear people complaining about we want a title deed. I've lived in Nongoma for close to 4 decades. We've never had an issue of somebody trying to move you from where the king or induna of your era put you. And that's why you will never find street kids back home because there's so much free land. Unlike here, every piece of land is owned by somebody. It's Maspala land. You're seeing it's privately owned. It's trespassing. It's all that. That's why people end up living under the bridge. So we as rural people have got so much respect for the system. Yes, there's people who are abusing it, but we don't think there is enough evidence that we want Ingonyama Trust to be thrown away. And then when we come to the current king, and the big question on the table is that we are also asking ourselves: is the king gonna continue being a ceremonial king, or we actually gonna see some of the things happening? I think we did touch this on my previous visit on the show, that when you go to the mandate of the king by the government, it's purely ceremonial. They say he's the custodian of language and culture, and he must be the mediator or the peacemaker when there's conflict. Those are non-tangible deliverables. So there is nothing that is mandated of him, to address service delivery issues. There is no budget for such. I know that a lot of us want to see what is the kingdom doing for us. So things were written by people, and they can be changed by people. So we need to ask ourselves, or we need to ask the current structure of the king, that it's a good question. What now? Are we going to continue being a ceremonial kingdom? Which I think the current king is also actually doing it quite well. I heard Mdona Pindangen at the previous read dance that it's the biggest we've seen a read dance, which means on that side we're not going to struggle. I even saw now the Berkeley officer and the celebration thereof. It's actually at a much higher level. There were regiments going to Ulundi where they were deployed from. There was a ceremony there, so it's becoming bigger ceremonially. And then the question we are also asking that, and then what? Once we're done being proud, dancing, and doing all the nice traditional things, where do we want to go as a kingdom? And we are waiting for them to give us that direction. We have been waiting for it, and we still hope it's coming. Yeah, let me
cut in the Dalisu, because Maqhawe has joined us, and I want to bring him on stream. I am going to be in conversation, as I said, with Maqhawe Ngubane, who is an isiZulu language practitioner and really a cultural analyst, someone who I found on social media. Great insights. I'll share his on social media details with you guys in a moment. Maqhawe, Baba, good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. Sabingelela kakhulu sebusuku. Ngibingelela nawe Shenge nakuwe Mqunge.
Baba, good to have you on. I must say I didn't get a chance to do my pre-show details. I must say, unfortunately, we must stick to English because we've got an international audience. And I did explain to my viewers that it's kind of difficult to translate some concepts into English, but we'll make an effort. But it's good to have you on, Maqhawe. Yes, brother, we're at a point in the conversation which I think really needs your voice also, because you're very vocal on some of these issues on social media, which is the first part of our conversation tonight is the Zulu King is on the throne. That initial contestation we saw play out is a thing of the past, even though it still has those low-level rumblings. But a lot of Zulus are now asking, where to from here, Zulu King? Where are you leading us? Your feeling, Maqhawe, about King Mrs. Zulu, do you get a sense that he's fully on the throne? There's a direction, there's a vision. What's been your reading so far?
Thank you, Ngobes. Fortunately, I've been part of the conversation, and I joined the stream, so I've been listening to some of the key points that you guys have touched on. Firstly, I'll just say, as we've been having this conversation, we've been having this dialogue even before. way before the king, was put on the throne, just after the untimely passing of the late King Goodwill Zwelithini kaBheka uZulu. So our standing is that we submit and we respect and we are the subject of the throne. So not the face or the name, as you've touched on earlier, that there's been some sort of a infightings here and there involving the princes and everybody from the royal house. So our standing has been that we are the people of the throne. We respect the throne. We are for the throne. So now we have a situation where, okay, right, the king has been put on the throne. We accept the king, we respect the king. And the king has had a few public speeches where he's where we now try to get his thinking around a lot of things. He's made a lot of comments recently at Isandlwane. He's made some political comments, and then now we are now just trying to get a sense of what does he think about this, what's his take on that. But obviously we are tired. We are tired of having a ceremonial king in this country. King Goodwill Zwelithini had a very clear vision early in his throne. His vision was to restore some of the ceremonies that we now see. That being Mkhosi Umhlanga, Mkhosi Wamagana, Mkhosi Oselwa, all these things that build our culture and that build our communities. He had a role to restore those things. We understand that they bring about social coherence in most instances. So his vision was very clear, and he worked on his vision very early in his throne or in his reign. He worked, hand in hand with Queen Manfombi to achieve some of the things that he achieved. He was very big on agriculture. He did provide people with a lot of agricultural material, and there were seminars and agricultural teachings around KZN. Encouraging people to go into agriculture in order to protect food security. He was very big on those. We know and we understood his vision and his understanding of quite a lot of social issues and economical issues. So now we have King Misuzulu, His Royal Highness King Misuzulu, as our king. We respect him. We've accepted him. But I will say this without any fear, any favor or whatsoever. He doesn't seem to have a clear vision as yet. At least maybe as yet. Maybe let's give him some time. But he doesn't seem to have any clear vision that we can back. He doesn't seem to have any strong standpoint in terms of the economy and the land, which is, I feel like Dalisu, the late king, just before his untimely passing, he was fighting a battle from the ANC, particularly, because we know that there was a campaign that was led by former President Kgalema Motlanthe, which was aimed at getting rid of the Ingonyama Trust, which protects the land of the Zulu. And the king was publicly fighting that battle, even in the courts, even during his public speeches. And so now, I think a number of people were expecting that the new king would perhaps, step into that and perhaps continue the fight, because the fight is on. It is known, it was made public, and people of the ANC are still continuing to say they want to do away with Ingonyama Trust. They want to do this and that and that and that. And then we are now expecting our king to get on top of that and hear his views on that, hear his standpoint on that. But we're not getting that yet. But it's not to say the king doesn't have a vision, the king this and that, maybe he just needs some time. Maybe let's give it some time, and then perhaps we'll get to hear what his
let me come in
standpoint
here, guys. Sorry, let me just come in here, guys. I must apologize. We have a complete power outage in my area, so that's the only reason why I'm off camera. But I think you guys can hear me. I'm still here. I'm just changing over to my cell phone. Guys, even as you're saying this, I think I want us to go into some of these contentious issues. And there's two that are involved here. Maqhawe, we often hear this on social media a lot. I know it makes me angry. I know it makes you very angry, which is this notion, for instance, Uguti, oh no, you'll hear people say, the Zulu King would not be the Zulu King if it wasn't for South African taxpayer money. In fact, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, you'll often hear people say, and including some of my fans, they'll say, no, we're paying this man 100 million rand a year. What is he doing with this money? He's just becoming rich off of this. Can you push back, please, on this narrative, Maqhawe, and maybe explain where this money is going and how it's not being pocketed by the Zulu King?
Listen, Sihle, I know this for a fact that a huge chunk of that money that people speak about goes into the arrangement and carrying out of these ceremonies that you see.
That's right.
So it doesn't even go to the king's pocket. But even that, people are entitled to their own opinions. But you have about 11 to 13 million Zulu-speaking people in this country that are taxpayers as well, and that are subjects, of the king. So you paying tax is not exclusive to anyone. We all pay tax, obviously equally, and you are all entitled to our own opinions. But to say that the king gets money from government, people must really try to learn about these things, read about these things, and actually research about these things so that they know what they're talking about. A huge chunk of this money goes into a huge chunk of the money, the royal budget that goes into the royal family is actually for royal programs that involve the whole country or the whole nation. Everyone is welcome to participate in these programs. There are programs that are headed by the king, but they are for everyone. We have even the international community taking part in these programs. We have people from across the country taking part in these programs. Really, it's here. I don't know what people are talking about, but if people have proof or they know that this money goes from government to the king's pocket to buying fleshy cars for the king, to doing this and that, then they must come forward. Don't just talk about something that really you don't have proof and trace of, because you will be challenged, and then you'll say, they always revert to saying, Zulus are tribalists, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah.
I want to add some extra context to this, and I'm hoping you guys can hear me. If you can just confirm if you can hear me, because I'm struggling on my side. Thanks, guys. I want to add context to this. A lot of this budget actually it gets given to the KZN Department of Arts and Culture, which is then responsible for running the programs, these various cultural events that are held under the royal house. The king doesn't necessarily get all of that money. He gets a salary, of course, like all royal houses, and he'll get certain state privileges, of course. I'm not denying that. But one of the things that really annoys me is, and I say this, by the way, as someone who believes that even if these perks were cut today, we as a Zulu nation were more than happy to pick up the slack. And maybe one of the things we need to test, and I want to put this to you guys, one of the things we need to begin to test directly is exactly that. Us as a Zulu nation actioning our desire to want to see greater independence, not only for the throne, but also for the Zulu nation, which brings me to that second part of our conversation tonight. The conversation that I'm hearing people raise more and more. Dalisu, I'll come to you, of is Zulu independence. I know this is happening. I'm one of the louder voices, I must admit, to this, but I'm not the only one. Dalisu, you hold these these Twitter spaces, and often you even have royal members of the royal house come into these groups to basically say, it's interesting to hear the public, ordinary Zulus, expressing these views. Dalisu, talk to me about what you are hearing. Talk to me about the popularity of this notion of maybe KZN going independent.
Yeah, thanks, Sishe. Yes, the conversation is heating up from different angles. By the way, when we started hosting spaces, I got to learn that there are groups, even Facebook groups that have been in existence for a number of years now. People calling for independence. Try to analysis head on, you will see that there is a huge frustration amongst and people do for an alternative to deal with the issues that we are suffering, and it's mainly around the lack of service delivery, the corruption, or not knowing where or how to deal with the corrupt system that we deal with. Anyway, that's what the political system was made for, to protect those that are at the top. You can try do whatever. It will take you years before they get resolved. So we do then that, especially the youth is crying for an alternative, and the first thing that comes into mind that they've got structures, traditional structures that they respect, structures that they actually has got a good, they mean good for their own communities and their own king and their own kids. So they feeling that, why don't we try this structure then and see what will come of that. And there's also very fear as well to some of the people, citing a number of challenges, some even trying to shy away from even engaging in conversation, and which we try to discourage a lot. You are to engage on matters. We don't expect you to shut down the matters and not really even learn about them. So I'm one of the people who say I've never far down the line about the independent Zulu state. There's a couple of benefits that I see, as people are complaining about the king getting a lot of money. When you come to think of, how contribution KZN can really make, or supposed to be for the country, you're talking the huge oceans economy, you're talking tourism, you're talking the biggest port, one of the biggest ports in Africa. So there's a lot that really also government is benefiting from the Zulu land, and from the land or that was stolen from our great king. So then can we get a better offering of
Dalisu?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, man, I must apologize, guys, maybe to both of you. My line is completely deteriorated. I'm sitting in complete darkness, and I'm assuming my local tower, battery, is running out or something.
No, oh yeah, we can still hear you on our side, though. Okay, Mbomba, I think we're gonna have to.
I think we have a room to ourselves.
We're gonna have to.
Guys, I must apologize. I think I must end the stream here. My line is completely deteriorated. Let's please rain check for another time. Again, guys, it's a power outage. My apologies to my viewers and to my two guests. I'm not even sure if I'm online at the moment. But let me end the show here, please, and with apologies once again to everybody. Yeah, again, guys, I'm sorry about this. eThekwini municipality totally failing me, and ESCOM totally failing me. Episode on another time. We might even pre-record it and put it up on the screen. My apologies once again to.
Is out.
No, thanks, Mqhawe. We'll cut out more conversation next time. We can now and cut the stream. Thank you.
Guys, I must end the stream. My apologies. I need to end it here. My line is terrible.